Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are continuing the Bible study series while we glaze some cups and bowls and all that fun stuff and throwing them in the kiln. So we are going to talk about 3 very important men that are in the Bible, and these 3 men are actually the names of my 3 kilns. So I thought it would be cool to kind of dive into why I named my kilns, their names, and the little joke behind it. My 3 kilns are named after an amazing example of unwavering faith. The story is in the Bible, and it also has to do with a really big furnace. And if you don't know the story, that's totally okay because we're gonna dive into it right here. It is the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, so let's go into some backstory of why Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are even in Babylon. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were young Hebrew men who were taken captive by the Babylonians in 605 BC and forced into exile in Babylon. The Babylonians wanted to take the brightest and best of Israel's young people to teach them about Babylonian culture, literature, and administrative practices. They also wanted the men to serve as advisors to the king. So basically, what's going on here is the king is capturing the minds of the youth. Even Adolf Hitler says, "He alone who owns the youth gains the future." And I know that's terrible, but that's what's going on here. So this story in the Bible begins with the king Nebuchadnezzar. He built this ginormous statue of himself, and he told all the important people of the land and his servants to come and fall down and worship the statue every time music played. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused. They would not bow down and worship the king's statue because they believed in God. You're only supposed to worship one God, one true God, and not have any false idols. Someone came to the king and told him about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego not obeying the king's orders and falling down to worship at this statue. So he asked for them to come see him. He told them, "Listen, I'll give you one more chance. And if you fall down and worship when you hear this music, then you're fine. If not, you are going to die." This conversation starts in Daniel 3:14, and it says, "Nebuchadnezzar said to them, 'Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sounds of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a burning furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?' Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, 'King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up.'" So basically they're saying, our God will save us. We have faith that our God will save us. Even if it is not in God's plan to save us, we will still believe in him because we are faithful to him. I really believe that that is a thing that people struggle with nowadays. People just want to blame God when bad things happen. But these men show us that even facing death, they still do not defile God and say, no, he's doing this bad stuff to us. It's because of him we're all in this situation. It's all his fault. We were captured by the Babylonians because of him. They're not playing the blame game. They're still trusting in God that they're going to be okay, even though they're facing this terribly scary situation. There's a verse, it's my favorite verse. Me and my Nana, we learned it when I was really little. It's Hebrews 11:1. "Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and being certain of what we do not see." And I feel like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego really just embodied that verse and truly showed what that verse means and what faith really truly looks like. Because that's exactly what they're doing. They're being faithful in something they can't even see, but they know is true. It's insane. Or how hard that is to face death and still be like, the Lord is good. Anyway, let's continue. And then, once they said all this to the king, obviously, Nebuchadnezzar was furious with them. He ordered his fiercest men to tie them up and throw them in the fiery furnace, which is basically just a big kiln. The king ordered for these furnaces to be 7 times hotter than normal. And I know what 900 degrees feels like because I burned myself on the kiln. I don't even want to imagine how hot these big furnaces were. I mean, it says in the Bible, they were so hot, the men throwing Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the furnaces died. Just getting close to the fire. Not even in it, just close to it. That's crazy to me. So they throw them in and they fall into the big furnace. Also, a quick side note, in the Bible, I think it's really cool. It specifies what they are wearing. It says, so these men wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothing. Because for what happens next in the story is very important to show that they're just wearing normal clothes that would normally just burn up in a fire. And then after they fell into the fiery furnace, picking up in verse 24, then the king Nebuchadnezzar leapt to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, were there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire? They replied, certainly, your majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. So the fiery furnace that killed men by just standing near it has not touched Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego, and there's a 4th one in the fire protecting them. Is that not amazing? Continuing in verse 26. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and all the important people gathered around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was not even a smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, Praise be to God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who had sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's commands, and were willing to give up their lives, rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore I declare that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their house be turned into piles of rubble. For no other God can save in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the provinces of Babylon. So these 3 men stood up to one of the most powerful kings in the Bible, and now God turned something very scary, very terrible, almost a death scenario, into something that will honor him and show his glory to many people that maybe would never heard about him. Is that not amazing? How God can turn something terrible into something amazing? And now Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is spreading their faith in Jesus because they were faithful. In my opinion, that is the biggest takeaway from this story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That even when troubles are coming our way, when we're having to face those fiery furnaces of our own, to not lose our faith, because God's got us. We have nothing to worry about. This world is scary, but if we have faith in the Lord, there is nothing that can stand against us. I think Romans 8:31 says it best. So what does all this mean? If God has determined to stand with us, tell me, who then could ever stand against us? So yeah, that's my challenge that I give to you. Have faith like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had faith in God. Have faith in God like them. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little Bible study. I've been trying to get this video out for a hot minute, but a lot of things have been going on, and I know it is just the devil trying to keep me away from spreading the word and having this time with y'all, and I'm not letting that happen anymore. And if you haven't checked out my other Bible study video, I'll link it at the end of this video. I would totally go check it out, because if I do say so myself, it is pretty darn cool. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little something, and I hope you come back for more fun pottery videos in the future. See you later!